Before we crack open tonight's cursed can of content, I just want to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, and an extra sinister shout out to the loyal members of the Sinister Elite. You legends help keep the darkness alive. If you're enjoying the stories and want to take it a step further, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and consider joining the Sinister Elite by clicking that join button below. Members get access to creepy custom emojis and exclusive Sinister Elite badges that level up the longer you survive with us. It's like loyalty, but spookier. All right, lights off, headphones in, and let's summon something we'll all regret. I hadn't seen Naomi in 3 years. Not since the night she left me standing in the rain with nothing but a suitcase and a voicemail that said, "This isn't goodbye, it's just a pause." She always talked like that, like she was reciting poetry no one else was in on. So when the ivory envelope slid through my mail slot, heavy, textured, sealed with wax, I knew before I even opened it. I knew by the scent alone. Sandalwood, clove, and something else. Something warm and bitter, like regret. Inside was a simple card. You're cordially invited to an exclusive evening at Naomi's estate. One night only. Formal attire required. RSVP by blood or ink. Rules will be explained upon arrival. Break them, and you forfeit your seat. N. She always did love theatrics. The estate used to be her grandmother's house. A 3-story Victorian with a greenhouse out back and a dinner bell you could hear from the main road. Last I heard, Naomi had inherited it after her grandmother passed peacefully in her sleep. But knowing Naomi, the truth was probably more complicated than that. I didn't RSVP with blood or ink. I texted her, "Are you serious?" She replied instantly, "Deadly." When I pulled up to the house, it looked different, cleaner, taller somehow. There were lanterns lining the walkway, glowing an unnatural blue. The porch swing had been replaced by a marble statue of a faceless woman holding a wine glass. The curtains in the upstairs window moved even though the night was still. A butler, or at least a guy doing a damn good impersonation of one, opened the door before I could knock. He didn't speak, just nodded and took my coat. His eyes were too glassy. Either he was on something or not entirely human. I couldn't tell which unnerved me more. The entryway smelled like cinnamon, bleach, and roses. Other guests had already arrived. 6 by the look of it. 3 women, 2 men, and 1 older guy with a limp and a scar across his temple. Nobody smiled. Nobody talked. They just stood around the parlor like chess pieces, waiting for someone to move them. And then she entered. Naomi descended the staircase like she'd been rehearsing for hours. Red silk clung to her frame like it worshipped her. Her lips were painted the color of a fresh wound. She wore gloves, white, elbow-length and pristine, like she hadn't touched anything dirty in her life, until she saw me. She smiled, slow and sharp. "Eli," she said, "you came. I always come when you call." She offered her hand, palm down. I didn't kiss it. She laughed. "That's okay. You were never one for tradition." She led us into the dining room, where a long mahogany table was set for 8. Candles burned in holders shaped like skeletal hands. The chandelier overhead looked like it had been constructed out of melted instruments. Violins, clarinets, piano keys all twisted into dripping branches of brass and bone. At each place setting, there was a black napkin, a silver fork and knife, and a small folded card with a name. Mine said, Eli. The one to my left said Naomi. The others, I recognized a couple names. Sebastian, Luna, Mara, people Naomi had known from her old social circle, a group I was never truly part of. She stood at the head of the table and cleared her throat. "I want to thank you all for coming," she said, like a queen addressing her court. "Tonight is about closure, about honesty, and about survival." No one laughed. "I've prepared a list of rules," she continued. "They're simple and they must be followed. Not because I say so, but because the house demands it." She gestured, and the silent butler handed out the rules, each printed on thick parchment and sealed with a crimson ribbon. I opened mine. Naomi's dinner party rules. Do not speak of the past unless asked. If the wine is white, sip. If it's red, do not drink. Never leave your seat unless invited. If a course is skipped, pretend it was never meant for you. Compliment the host. Sincerely. If the bell rings, hold your breath until it stops. Do not touch the curtains. Ever. Rule number 6 caught my eye. Hold your breath, I whispered. Naomi caught my glance and winked. It's tradition. We all took our seats. Dinner began with silence. The first course was something cold and purple, beet tartare maybe, or something worse. I moved it around with my fork, pretending to enjoy it. Sebastian muttered a compliment. Naomi beamed at him like he'd just sung a sonnet. Midway through the soup course, which smelled like seawater and regret, Mara lifted her napkin and whispered, "Is this some kind of game?" The butler, who had been wiping something thick and red off the floor behind her, froze. His cloth left a streak across the wood. He grabbed a nearby mop leaning against the wall and began scrubbing furiously. No one spoke, not even Naomi. Mara opened her mouth to repeat the question. Then the bell rang. It came from somewhere in the walls, a deep metallic gong that echoed through our bones. Every guest clutched their chest, eyes wide, air caught. Everyone held their breath, except Mara. She laughed. "This is ridiculous," she said. Then her eyes went wide. Her cheeks ballooned. She coughed once, then again. And then she collapsed face first into her soup. The bell stopped ringing, and Naomi smiled. "One down," she whispered, sipping her wine. 6 to go. Mara's body stayed slumped in her bowl for a full minute before anyone moved. Not even the butler, who had just finished mopping up whatever mess she left behind, and quietly slid the mop back against the wall like it was just another tool, not a witness to murder. Naomi didn't flinch. In fact, she looked pleased. Sebastian cleared his throat. "Is she dead?" Naomi smiled sweetly. "She broke a rule." "But," Luna started. "Let me be perfectly clear," Naomi said, rising from her seat. "These rules aren't just for fun. They aren't a party game. They're a system, a contract. They're here to protect you." She circled the table slowly, her heels tapping softly against the floor. "This house doesn't forgive disobedience." I stared at Mara's body. Her face was buried in the soup like she'd just fallen asleep in it. No blood, no convulsing, no drama, just dead. Naomi walked over to the butler and nodded once. He returned with a heavy silver dome, like something they'd use in a 5-star restaurant, and placed it gently over Mara's head and upper torso. "Please enjoy the rest of your meal," Naomi said, as if covering a corpse mid-dinner was just standard etiquette. We moved on to the second course. It was lamb, rare and tender. Blood still pooled around the edges of the plate. Everyone pretended to eat. No one made eye contact, not with Naomi, not with each other, not even with the food. The house had changed somehow. The shadows felt thicker. The candle flames burned taller. I swore I could hear whispering from the chandelier, soft and rhythmic, like a choir humming under their breath. Naomi clinked her glass. "Let's play a game," she said brightly, like she hadn't just watched someone die. "Truth or lie. I'll ask a question. You answer with a story. But I won't tell you whether to lie or tell the truth." Sebastian shook his head. "I'm not playing this." Naomi's expression didn't change. "Rule 1, she said softly. "Do not speak of the past unless asked. And I'm asking." He hesitated. "I met Naomi 6 years ago," he said slowly. "We were both at a party in Prague. She was wearing this black dress that looked like smoke. She told me I had kind eyes, and I told her I didn't believe in ghosts." Naomi leaned closer. "Did you?" "No," Sebastian said. "Then why did you cry when I touched your hand?" she whispered. He didn't answer. She turned to Luna. "Your turn. Tell us about the night you stayed in my guest room." Luna froze. I don't remember it, she said. Naomi narrowed her eyes. Lie. Luna's hands trembled. Fine. You asked me to stay because you said there was something in the walls. I thought you were drunk, but at 3:17 in the morning the closet opened on its own. Something came out. Something tall and thin and wrong. You were standing behind it, smiling. Naomi beamed. Truth. We all went silent. The third course arrived. It was wine. Red. Naomi lifted her glass, swirling the deep burgundy liquid until it caught the candlelight. I stared at my rules. If the wine is white, sip. If it's red, do not drink. One by one, each guest hesitated. Luna pushed her glass away. Sebastian gripped his fork like a weapon. Then the old man, the one with the scar, lifted his wine and sipped it without blinking. Naomi turned toward him slowly. Frank, she said, you never could follow rules. I didn't come here for you, he growled. I came to kill you. The entire room shifted. The lights dimmed. The fire in the hearth went out. And something groaned beneath the floorboards. Frank stood up. His hand dipped into his coat. For a second, I thought he had a gun. But it was something else. A blade? A charm? He never got the chance to use it. The chandelier screamed. That's the only way I can describe it. The music stopped. The air itself seemed to tremble. And from above, one of the melted violin arms snapped free and plunged into Frank's chest. He didn't make a sound, just dropped to his knees and crumpled sideways, the wine glass still clutched in one hand. The butler was already moving. This time, no mop. Just another silver dome, placed gently over Frank's body, like we were all just a little too squeamish for open caskets. Naomi sighed. I told him not to come. I begged him not to. I looked around. There were 5 of us left now. Naomi, me, Sebastian, Luna, and a woman at the far end of the table I hadn't spoken to yet. She hadn't said a word all night. Naomi raised her glass again. To honesty, she said. No one else joined the toast. She drank deeply and smiled. After the third course, Naomi excused herself from the table. The butler followed her, leaving us alone in the flickering candlelight. Mara and Frank's silver-covered bodies gleamed at either end of the room like grotesque centerpieces. I leaned toward Luna. Do you know why she's doing this? She always said the house listens, Luna whispered. That it feeds on secrets, on disobedience. The rules aren't hers, they're its. Sebastian added, and she thinks if she hosts these dinners, if she offers it enough, she can stay in control. I turned to the silent woman at the end. And you? Why are you here? She blinked slowly. I'm her sister, she said. And for a moment, the entire room felt colder. The bell hadn't rung again. But I couldn't help but feel like someone was already running out of breath. Naomi's sister, if that's who she really was, hadn't said a word all night until now. Even then, the sentence landed like a slap. I'm her sister. The room tensed. Even Luna, who had been steadily unraveling her napkin into strips, sat up straighter. Sebastian leaned forward. You have a name? She looked at him, unblinking. We don't use them anymore. Convenient, he muttered. I studied her. Same eyes as Naomi, same cheekbones but softer. Her dress was plain black velvet. No jewelry, no nail polish, no expression. Her hair was pulled back so tight it looked painful. While Naomi dressed like a spell made flesh, her sister looked like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was. What did she invite you for? I asked her. She looked at me then, really looked at me. And in her stillness, I felt a pull, like gravity had shifted slightly in her direction. To end it, she said simply. Before I could ask what she meant, Naomi returned. She had changed. Her dress was no longer red. Now it was deep green, like pine needles soaked in ink. Her gloves were gone. Her hands were bare and wet. I had to prepare the fourth course myself, she said lightly. The butler is good with presentation, but terrible with spice. No one asked what was in it. She placed a covered dish at the center of the table. Then one by one, smaller plates were handed out. The butler moved silently, his face unreadable. But I noticed one thing. He no longer blinked. Not once. Naomi lifted the silver lid. Steam rose, fragrant and earthy. Mushrooms, meat, something sweet like honey or figs. It looked incredible. Too incredible, I didn't touch it. Neither did Luna. Sebastian took a bite. So did Naomi's sister. So, Naomi set eyes on me. Shall we move on to rule number 3? I glanced at the parchment beside my plate. Never leave your seat unless invited. Let's test it, she said. She stood behind Luna, gently resting her hands on her shoulders. I formally invite you, Luna, to rise from your chair and speak a truth. Luna hesitated, then stood. Her knees wobbled slightly. She kept her hands at her sides. I never meant to sleep with him, she said. My stomach flipped. Naomi grinned. I was drunk. I was angry. And I wanted to hurt you. Naomi leaned in and whispered, And did it work? Luna shook her head. You don't get hurt. You break, and you reassemble with sharper pieces. Naomi clapped once. I accept your truth, she said. Luna sat down quickly, eyes burning with shame, or rage, or both. Then Naomi looked at me. Your turn. I didn't leave you, I said quietly. You pushed me out. She didn't blink. You forgot the anniversary. That was one day. No, she said. It was the day. The day we promised. You broke it. You wrote the rules, I snapped. Naomi's smile cracked just slightly. Exactly. The house creaked around us. Somewhere upstairs, a door slammed. Then another. Rapid fire. Like someone was pacing or searching. Naomi's sister watched the ceiling. It's coming down, she said. Naomi turned toward her. You always were the melodramatic one. You think this ends with blood on the table and wine in your glass? She said, voice rising. You're feeding it too much. It's bloated. Angry. It wants more. Naomi stepped toward her. I didn't invite you to speak. You didn't invite me, her sister snapped. The house did. Everyone froze. Even the butler, who had just started clearing Mara's place setting, now empty except for a neatly folded napkin and a single beet-stained spoon. Naomi's eye twitched. Then the bell rang. Gong. We all flinched. This time it was louder. Closer. It vibrated the walls. Hold your breath. Everyone gasped, then fell silent. I closed my eyes and counted. 1, 2, 3. Naomi's sister didn't hold her breath. She stared directly at Naomi, breathing slowly, deliberately. The bell faded, and nothing happened. The others looked around, confused, nervous. Naomi's hands curled into fists. She's not bound, Sebastian whispered. She's not playing. No, Naomi said, cold and calm. She's cheating. Naomi turned to the butler and gave a curt nod. He moved behind her sister, reached into his jacket, pulled out a silver cord. No, not cord. A necklace. He moved to clasp it around her neck. She slapped it away. The butler stumbled backward, blinking for the first time in hours. And then he melted. Not metaphorically. Literally. His skin steamed, his clothes dissolved into threads of smoke, and his eyes popped like bubbles. He hit the floor in a wet heap of fabric and foam. The mop clattered beside him. Nobody moved. Naomi's sister wiped her hands on her dress like it was just another Tuesday. Sebastian stood up. You said this was closure, he said. What is this? Naomi looked tired now. She walked to the head of the table and sat down slowly. It was closure, she said softly. But the house wants something else now. It wants permanence. Her voice cracked. I tried to make it fair. I gave you rules. I made it a game. She looked at me. I gave you a second chance. The room darkened, like clouds had swallowed the moon, and the chandelier began to bleed. At first I thought the chandelier was dripping wax, but wax doesn't pool black and metallic. Wax doesn't run like ink, or blood. Thick drops landed in slow, deliberate plunks onto the center of the dinner table, right between Naomi and her sister. The light above flickered like it was choking on its own heartbeat. Luna whispered, "What is this place?" Naomi didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the crimson streak crawling down her wine glass. She didn't move to wipe it away. "I didn't want it to go like this," she said quietly. Sebastian pushed away from the table. "Too bad, Naomi. You don't get to pretend you're the victim. People are dead." He gestured toward the two silver domes, the one where Mara had slumped into her soup, and the other covering Frank's still form. The smell of cooked meat was gone now, replaced with something older, wetter, like the inside of a locked room. Naomi raised one hand. "Sebastian," she said softly. "Sit. I'm not your dog." I didn't ask. The ceiling groaned above him. The light bulbs dimmed into a dull red glow, and then something moved in the shadows behind his chair. I opened my mouth to warn him, but I was too late. Something fast and unseen yanked Sebastian off his feet and slammed him against the wall. His body hit with a dull, wet thud, like meat dropped onto tile. He let out a groan, tried to stand, then dropped to his knees. He wasn't dead, but he'd gotten the message. Naomi didn't even blink. Her sister stood up slowly, pushing her chair back with an eerie calm. "Do you see now? This was never a game. You're not in control anymore." Naomi smiled thinly. "You've always been jealous." "I was always afraid, and for good reason." The house creaked again. Something in the chandelier shifted, a silhouette hanging between the twisted violin arms and melted keys. A face, or half of one. Luna whispered, "I want to leave." Naomi finally looked at her. "You're welcome to try, but that's not how the house works." "The front door's right there," Luna said. "What happens if I walk out?" Naomi shrugged. "The house decides. Maybe it lets you go. Maybe it swallows you whole. There's a reason no one's ever left one of these dinners early." "You've done this before?" Naomi didn't answer. The fifth course came out cold. A salad of pale leaves and small black fruit that pulsed slightly when pierced with a fork. I didn't touch it. Naomi's sister picked at hers without eating. Luna just stared at her plate, tears welling at the corners of her eyes. Sebastian groaned on the floor, holding his ribs. "She's going to kill us all," he muttered. "No," Naomi said. "Not me. The house. I'm just the mouth it speaks through." I looked at her, really looked at her. There were cracks around her eyes now, not wrinkles. Cracks. Hairline fractures in the surface of her skin, like she was made of porcelain trying to hold itself together. "Why me?" I asked. She blinked. "What? Why invite me?" Naomi's voice softened. "Because you never lied to me. Everyone else told me what I wanted to hear. You didn't. You told me I was obsessive, that I was dangerous, that I scared you. You did scare me." She smiled again, not cruelly, almost wistfully. "And that's why I loved you. Because you saw what I was and stayed anyway. Until you didn't." She reached out across the table, not touching me, just offering the gesture. "You don't have to die tonight, Eli. I can protect you, but only if you follow the rules." I looked down at the parchment beside my plate again. "Do not leave your seat unless invited. Do not touch the curtains. Compliment the host. Sincerely." My heart thudded. Slowly, I looked up. "You look beautiful tonight," I said. Naomi froze. The whole room did. Even the house seemed to pause, like it had stopped mid-breath. Naomi tilted her head. "Is that sincere?" I swallowed. "Yes. And I meant it. Maybe not because of the dress or the hair or the lips, but because of the power she radiated. The deadly grace. The way she owned this horror like she'd been born in it. Naomi's expression shifted. For a moment, she looked like the girl I used to know. The one who wore thrifted cardigans and cried at the end of bad horror movies. The one who kissed me under a broken street lamp and told me my soul felt tired and delicious. She sat back in her chair. "Then you may stay," she said. Her sister snorted. "You really think a compliment buys him safety?" "No," Naomi said, eyes still on me. "But it buys him time." Sebastian pulled himself back into his chair, gasping. Luna stared at the chandelier like it was ticking, counting down. And somewhere behind the walls, I heard something scratching to get in, or out. The scratching grew louder, not like mice, not like branches in the wind. This was bigger, slow, deliberate, like long broken fingernails dragging themselves across wood and plaster. Everyone heard it now. Naomi didn't acknowledge the sound, neither did her sister. Luna's hands gripped the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles turned white. "It's in the walls." "No," Naomi said. "It is the walls." The room was trembling. Not violently, just enough to let you know something underneath the surface was stretching, waking up, hungry. Sebastian coughed. "This house, it's alive?" Naomi tilted her head. "It's not alive. It's something far older than life, older than breath. But it likes to pretend, and I let it." Her voice was strangely affectionate, like she was talking about a pet or a lover. The sixth course never came. Instead, the fireplace reignited on its own, casting flickering shadows across the room. One of them didn't move with the rest. It stood at the far end of the dining room, tall and thin, its arms impossibly long. A silhouette, featureless. It didn't sway or twitch. It just was. Naomi's sister stood up without being asked. "What are you doing?" Naomi snapped. "I don't need your permission anymore," her sister replied. "The house invited me, remember?" She stepped away from the table. Her shadow stretched across the wood like it was alive. The rules echoed in my head. Never leave your seat unless invited. Naomi rose from her chair. "If you take one more step..." Her sister looked over her shoulder. "What? You'll feed me to it? You already tried." She reached the wall where the tall shadow stood. The candles dimmed. The house let out a sound. Not a creak, not a groan, but something closer to a sigh. A satisfied sigh. And then the wall split open. Not a door, a seam. It cracked vertically from ceiling to floor, splitting the wallpaper and the wood beneath it, revealing a narrow hallway that hadn't been there before. The inside was lined with mirrors, cracked, warped. Each one reflected us, but wrong. I saw myself grinning with teeth too sharp. Luna's reflection was headless. Sebastian's was bleeding from the eyes. Naomi's was missing entirely. "I've been here before," her sister whispered. "It wants us to remember." Naomi hissed, "Get away from there." But her sister stepped inside, and the wall began to close. Naomi screamed and rushed forward, slamming her hand against the seam just before it sealed shut. Too late. Her sister was gone. So was the hallway. So was the shadow. All that remained was a long smear of blood where Naomi's palm had hit the wood, still sizzling slightly as if the wall had burned her. The seventh course arrived. A single bell rang once softly. The butler didn't bring it. He was gone, melted into memory. Instead, the plate just appeared. One at each setting, a final dish. It was raw, red, pulsing, a slice of something that looked like meat but smelled like grief. Luna stared at hers in silent horror. Sebastian turned his face away. Naomi sat down slowly, her hand still bleeding onto the tablecloth. "This is the last course," she said, voice low. "The house demands a sacrifice." She looked at each of us one by one. "We're down to 4. Luna, Sebastian, Naomi, me." Her eyes lingered on me longest. "You can choose to eat, or you can choose to give." "Give what?" Luna asked. Naomi didn't answer. Instead, She stood, walked to the head of the table, and placed a knife in front of me. Not silverware. A real knife. Bone handle. Jagged edge. The kind of thing meant for something much more personal than food. She whispered, "You still have time, Eli." And then she walked to the windows. The curtains swayed even though there was no breeze. Sebastian stood slowly. "I'm not dying for this. I'm not dying for her." "Sit down," Naomi said. He didn't. The chandelier groaned. A single drop of blood landed on Sebastian's forehead. He wiped it off, sneering. "You're not a god. You're just a lonely girl playing house with a monster you can't control." Naomi didn't move. The house did. The floor opened beneath Sebastian with a sharp crack like wood giving up. He dropped straight down with a scream, then silence. Just gone. No trace. Luna sobbed into her hands. I stared at the knife. Naomi turned to me. "You said I was beautiful." "I meant it." "You still do." I didn't answer. She stepped close, leaned down beside me. Her voice was soft. Sad. "Eli, I didn't bring you here to kill you. I brought you here because I'm tired. Because I want to end it. But the house won't let me walk away. Not without something in return." She nodded toward the knife. "You can be the final course, or you can be the final sacrifice." Behind her, the curtains billowed. I heard whispering. My name. Over and over. I picked up the knife. The weight was heavier than it looked. The handle felt warm. Naomi closed her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. But I wasn't looking at her anymore. I was looking at the curtains. Because something was behind them. Something with her sister's eyes. There was no wind, but the curtains moved like they were breathing. Slow. Intentional. The whispering behind them had grown louder, more frantic. Dozens of voices, some soft, some raspy, all murmuring my name like a warning. Or a prayer. Naomi watched me clutch the knife. "You don't want to do this," she said. "I don't know what I'm doing," I replied, rising from my seat. Behind me, Luna sat frozen, pale as a corpse, her untouched final course still twitching faintly on the plate. Naomi stepped into my path, hand outstretched like we were back in that apartment in Chicago, arguing over candles and rent and which of us was better at ruining love. "I brought you here because I trusted you," she said. "Because you were the only one who never asked me to be something I wasn't." I looked past her, toward the curtains. They were moving more violently now, like whatever was behind them was growing impatient. Naomi followed my gaze. "No," she said, "don't. Do not touch the curtains. Ever." It was the last rule, and I was one rule away from understanding everything. I stepped past her. The curtain fabric felt damp and warm, like skin, not cloth. My fingers sank slightly into the material before I yanked it back. The window was gone. Behind the curtain was another wall. Cracked mirror panels lined it, stitched together with black wire. The reflection that stared back at me wasn't my own. It was Naomi's sister, or what was left of her. She was twisted, her skin pale and translucent like frost on glass. Her eyes glowed faint blue, and her mouth moved without sound. Then sound poured in like someone had ripped a dam open. "Help me," she said. Naomi screamed behind me. The mirrors shattered, and something stepped out. It was Naomi's sister, but not. Taller, hollow. Her skin shifted like smoke beneath ice. She looked at Naomi, and Naomi stumbled backward like she'd been struck. "You left me there," the thing hissed. "You chose the hallway," Naomi shouted. "You broke the rules." "I didn't break them," her sister said. "I changed them." Then she looked at me. "You still have the knife." I nodded. "There's one more rule you weren't told," she said. I swallowed hard. "What is it?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If the host won't end the feast, the guest must carve out the heart of the house." I looked at Naomi. She was trembling now, all elegance gone. Her red lips quivered, her hands shook. The porcelain cracks on her face had deepened, spider webbing into her skin like she was coming apart from the inside. "Eli," she whispered. "Please." Luna was weeping now. "Just do it, before the house decides." I stepped forward, the knife burning hot in my hand. Naomi didn't run. She didn't fight. She just stared at me, her eyes glassy, her voice barely audible. "Do you still love me?" I hesitated, and in that moment, the house lurched. The table flipped on its own, dishes crashing, candles shattering. Blood poured from the chandelier like a waterfall, soaking the floor. The walls cracked outward, revealing endless black corridors lined with rows of open mouths, whispering and shrieking and begging all at once. Luna was on the floor, screaming. Naomi's sister stood untouched, watching, waiting. And Naomi? Naomi smiled. "Even now," she said, "you hesitate. That's why I loved you." Then she grabbed my hand, wrapped her fingers around the knife, and drove it into her own chest. The house stopped. No more shaking, no more whispers, no more bleeding light. Naomi collapsed, gently, like she'd finally been allowed to sleep. Her body didn't bleed. It unraveled. Her skin turned to dust, her dress to mist, and the cracks across her face shattered like old porcelain in a storm. She was gone before she hit the floor. Naomi's sister approached, stepping over the shattered glass and overturned chairs. "The heart of the house," she said, "was always her." Luna sat up, shaking. "What happens now?" Her sister looked toward the wall, where the mirror hallway had been. "The house sleeps, for now." I stood there, knife still in hand, staring at the space where Naomi had been. The curtain fluttered once more, and then lay still. We walked out the front door. There were no more rules. The lanterns were extinguished. The night air smelled like rain and roses. The sky was clear. We didn't say a word. Behind us, the front door of the estate creaked shut on its own, and the porch light flickered once, then twice, then off. I didn't look back. Neither did Luna. Naomi's sister walked ahead of us barefoot, calm, as if she'd just come from a yoga retreat instead of a haunted dinner party where half the guests were dead and the chandelier bled like a busted artery. The gravel crunched beneath our feet. The estate faded behind us like a dream you try to forget the second you wake up. Still, I could feel the weight of the knife in my hand, even though I'd dropped it, even though it had dissolved with her. We reached the gates just before sunrise. They stood open now, yawning into the quiet hills. The sky was a soft, bruised pink, like the night had been beaten senseless, and the morning was just starting to crawl out from under the wreckage. Luna lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "Do you think we're free?" she asked. Naomi's sister didn't answer. She just turned and stared back toward the house. There was nothing left of it. Not the lanterns, not the faceless statue, not even the cracked brick path that led to the porch. Just an empty field of damp grass and wildflowers, like the estate had never been there. I wanted to ask her name. I wanted to ask what happened to the others, to the house, to Naomi. But I didn't. Because deep down I already knew. Naomi wasn't buried. She was consumed. And the house didn't just feed on blood or disobedience or bad manners. It fed on love. Twisted, broken love. The kind that begged to be destroyed. I drove Luna home in silence. Her hands were stained from the wine or the soup or maybe the meat, but she didn't wipe them. Just sat in the passenger seat and stared out the window like she was waiting to wake up somewhere else. I dropped her off at a motel off Highway 14. She didn't ask for my number. Didn't say thank you. She just got out, walked toward the entrance, and never looked back. It's been 3 nights. I haven't slept. I can still hear the bell in my dreams. Not the loud one, the soft one. The one that rang before the final course. Sometimes I think it's coming from inside my apartment. I checked under the bed twice tonight. My curtains are moving. There's no wind. I keep telling myself it's over. But then yesterday I found something in my mailbox. A letter. No envelope. Just folded parchment sealed with red wax. Inside, in Naomi's handwriting. Thank you for seeing me. This time, I stayed gone. But the house remembers you. And it never hosts just one dinner. I burned the letter. I flushed the ashes. But I still feel it. In the corner of my vision. In the hum behind the light bulbs. In the soft creak of floorboards when no one's home but me. The rules are gone. But I think the invitation still stands. Tonight I sat down for dinner and found my plate already set. The silverware arranged, a glass of red wine waiting. And in the corner of the room, leaning against the wall, was my old cleaning mop. Still damp. No idea how it got there. I haven't used it in years.